A reporter who fell on the ground and breaks a horse thrown at full speed. Another crazy bodybuilder in the middle of an interview. If you feel like having a good laugh, hang on, here are the funny moments with sports journalists. Erin Andrews, a journalist from Fox Sports, was at the right place but at the wrong time that night. After the Boston Red Sox's big win over the Detroit Tigers in the American Baseball League, the winning team was jubilant. And as often happens in sports celebrations, where unlucky people end up drenched in water or champagne, this sports journalist was the victim of the festivities. Indeed, while she was interviewing receiver Jared Sultalamakia, yes, that name earned him the longest surname in the history of the league, another team member wanted to prank his teammate. The teammate, however, had the reflex to step aside, while the prankster, who had snuck up behind them, threw a bucket of energy drink. In the end, only the journalist found herself submerged in the sweet liquid. Nevertheless, she took the joke very well, happy to be part of the event she was supposed to cover. By the way, Erin Andrews, who had made the trip from Los Angeles, even made an ironic comment on this awkward joke by posting a picture of her on Twitter that same evening, where she is seen soaking wet and sticking her tongue out, with the comment, "I must like postseason baseball." After the NBA Western Conference Final, an embarrassing and funny moment went almost unnoticed. The Golden State Warriors were defeated 96-88 by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the post-game period was marked by one of those ambiguous and strange events that have no explanation. While ESPN's presenter, Stephen A. Smith, known for his memes on Twitter, was delivering his post-game commentary live, a giant hand appears in the shot and rests on his shoulder. The camera gets agitated, and at the same time, Shaquille ONeal, the former Lakers star, enters the field and places a gentle kiss on Stephen A. Smith's forehead. It can be amusing to interpret the unexpressive reaction of the presenter, who at first looks annoyed and serious, but then laughs at the cameraman and says, "See what Shaq is. That's my man." Shaquille ONeal, who played as a pivot, was one of the heaviest and greatest NBA players of all time. He has always been very much appreciated by the public, and the very kind gesture he had towards the journalist is finally not very surprising when you know the childlike and endearing character of the 2.16-meter-tall colossus. Do you like this video? Then don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, so you won't miss anything in our next publications. Let's keep going. During NFL games, reporters are never safe from a player's violent physical charge or an unfortunate ball throw. Indeed, reporters, located on the field's boundaries, are exposed to all sorts of unintentional outbursts if they are not subjected to more or less funny pranks. If they are prepared for these incidents, however, their inattention and their frantic and distraught reactions suggest otherwise. In any case, this series of sequences is really fun, and one gets the impression that the journalists are the whipping boy for the overflow of the energy of the sportsman. From the beautiful journalist, all smiles and with her back turned to the game, who gets knocked down by a scrum, to the cameraman jostled by the player's exit from the tunnel that leads to the locker room, we are taken by the desire to laugh and pity them at the same time. However, in some of the images, one wonders if the players are not deliberately bullying the journalists, either by throwing the oval ball directly at their heads or by knocking them over in the middle of the race. But in any case, these incidents always end in laughter. Joey Logano is a car driver with a great sense of humor, who likes to do tricks for journalists, with the complicity of Dan Lynch, his mechanic. One day he was interviewed by Fox Sports journalist Caitlin Vinci. His sense of joke was not lacking. Standing next to an ISM Raceway truck, he was answering the journalist in the most normal way in the world when suddenly a special guest slipped in between them, a fake giant spider. And we can say that the journalist had the expected reaction, since she was completely panicked, to the great hilarity of Logano and his team. But considering the size of the beast, and the unusual context, we are forced to admit that we would not have been less afraid than this journalist, who soon blamed Dan Lynch, known to often leave fake spiders lying around wherever he goes. The driver later congratulated himself on his move, saying that it had worked much better than he thought. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is known to be not really the best friend of journalists. Indeed, he likes to embarrass them and play them off, sometimes with apparent meanness, but those who know him know that this proud, provocative and teasing side is part of the character and that this behavior makes him endearing. This sequence illustrates the nonchalance and malice of the former Paris Saint-Germain striker. At the end of a training session with the Swedish national team, as he enters the changing rooms, we see him slowly walking out of the field, eating a banana. When he reaches the level of a seated cameraman, he does not hesitate to put the banana peel directly on the lens, without stopping, in the most natural way possible. The cameraman, who, of course, doesn't mind, laughs heartily about it. Mark Donnelly is a Canadian singer best known for singing the national anthems. In 2014, he was invited to sing "O Canada" in front of the Penticton V's ice hockey team, while moving around the rink. You can imagine that this exercise takes a little practice, but Mark Donnelly is no novice. With his ice skates on, he enters the field, skates back and forth with ease, while singing. But, carried away by the patriotic lyricism, he becomes less attentive to the obstacles on the rink. You see the rest coming. Our singer gets his feet caught on the red carpet, and tumbles down on the ice, under the laughter and applause of the spectators. But like a good professional, he gets up and continues skating. Probably too embarrassed to sing afterward, he nevertheless has a good idea to push the audience to sing in his place, in a gesture that is not devoid of elegance. This journalist showed a lot of courage, as can be seen in these impressive images. Risking your life to stop a horse in the middle of a race, Hayley Moore, presenter of the Sky Sports channel, tried it with success, to the point that she was hailed as a heroine after this perilous feat. We see her standing in the way of the horse that had run and galloped at any bridle as if to escape. The horse, far from slowing down, knocked the journalist down, who nevertheless had the lucidity to grab the reins once on the ground. Thanks to this, she succeeded in interrupting the escapade of the rose. The stunned commentator went so far as to say that Hayley Moore deserved an award for this performance, while the heroine modestly stated, "I'm used to stopping hair, but not really that way." It's not surprising that she's used to hair contact. Hayley Moore grew up in a family of professional jockeys. Moreover, the resonance of this feat did not necessarily delight the journalist, who felt that her gesture did not deserve so much praise and that she would not be ready to do it again in front of the cameras. It should also be pointed out that the journalist had not yielded to an ill-considered impulse, since she knew full well that the horse was exhausted, after several races, and that it would eventually stop without too much difficulty. In addition, his blinkers had slipped and covered his eyes, which prevented him from seeing the obstacles and explained his nervousness. Live on the KUTV News channel, journalist Brooke Graham had a bad moment when she was about to receive a cross-country ski lesson from professionals. Indeed, after a question asked to the skiers, the young woman faints and falls, like a stake. The men at her side then hasten to remove her ski boots, but the most surprising thing is that the journalist regains consciousness almost immediately, and continues her report, apologizing for having slipped. Brooke Graham pointed out after the incident that after getting up, she had no idea how long she had been passed out, and that she decided to continue as if nothing had happened as soon as she saw the camera pointed at her face. She had warned the producers beforehand that the cold and the altitude were making her uncomfortable. However, even though she was unconscious, she was able to remain professional, which was a source of admiration for the viewers. On November 13, 2017, Italy, after an unsuccessful draw against Sweden in a playoff, failed to qualify for the World Cup for the first time in 60 years. In the return match in Milan, the Swedish team was able to defend its advantage, gained in the first leg thanks to the only goal of the game signed Johansson. By eliminating Italy, Sweden put on historic performance, and the celebration at the end of the game was worthy of the event. If on the Transalpine side, failure was seen as an apocalypse, in Sweden, on the contrary, it was a miraculous feat, and the players had exulted in a very comical way after the final whistle, as you will see. The Eurosport channel had occasionally set up a mini studio around the field to comment on the post-match, but that was without counting on the euphoria that the Swedish qualification could cause. Indeed, the jubilant players had laid siege to the small stand. Their delirious elation was such that they almost broke the table in half, piling on top of each other, while a technician was desperately trying to save the equipment from the gust of joy. Sweden also made an honorable journey in the World Cup that opened before them, reaching the quarter-finals. Eliminated by England, the Swedes had defeated Switzerland in the 8th round and finished first in a group that included Germany. This young karateka had a rather brutal joke, in front of this young journalist, that he wanted to impress the gallery. In this short sequence, he grabs the frail young woman's shoulders and strikes her with a merciless leg hook, which causes her to tumble sharply to the floor. Given the brutality of the shock, one has reason to worry about the backbone of this poor Japanese girl, who was perhaps naive enough to ask to see what the boy was capable of. If this is the case, this one did not make himself prey. You don't need keen observation to understand the very eloquent body language of journalist Stacy Thompson. During an interview in 2011, behind the scenes of the British Grand Prix, the journalist found it hard to hide her excitement as she stood next to bodybuilder Flex Lewis and his imposing wife. If you research the signs that prove that a woman is not indifferent to the charms of another individual, you will find all the clues in this short video. Indeed, Stacy Thompson, as you can see, is literally under the spell of Flex Lewis, and she looks less like a journalist than an emotional girl in front of the handsome high school boy. You have to be pretty damn blessed to claim that Stacy is simply moved by the success of an athlete she admires. No, she is madly in love. And the funny thing is that Flex Lewis' wife is standing right next to her, and maybe guessing the reasons for her trouble. She's having a good time. At one point, we even see the journalist biting her lips, a sign that is not a little demonstrative. In any case, this interview, which was widely circulated on the internet, made a lot of people laugh. The conquered face of the beautiful blonde, in front of the impressive stature of the bodybuilder, even pushed some people to start doing bodybuilding exercises, seeing it as a source of encouragement, and want to reproduce the same effect in other women. That's it. That's the end of the video. Hoping you enjoyed it. Tell us in the commentary which of these comic scenes made you laugh the most.